Mark Warner of Virginia. He's the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. What's your reaction to what we just heard from the president about nationalizing all these elections?
Wolf, it's beyond wacky. The Constitution makes very clear that elections are the responsibility of the state and local governments. And matter of fact, historically, anytime there's even been efforts to increase security, for example, in elections in 2020 by Trump's own CISA agency, cybersecurity agency, Republican jurisdictions fought back saying, oh my gosh, we don't want the feds anywhere around here. So this is a guy that's obsessed about the fact that he lost in 2020, he lost Georgia. You know, it's bordering on the bizarre that we're 6 years later and he's still obsessed about this. But what I tell you, it says to me, Wolf, and I have to acknowledge, a year ago when people said, hey, do you think we ought to be concerned directly about the safety of 26 and 28 elections? And I thought maybe that's an overstatement. We've got enough guardrails in place. But I don't believe that anymore. I think we've seen the dismantling by this administration of the Foreign Malign Influence Center at the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who I get to, who shouldn't be anywhere near this criminal domestic investigation in Georgia, the cutbacks at the cybersecurity agency, and the concerns that I have is whether it's an ICE patrol, whether it's his efforts to use the Insurrection Act, or God knows whatever else. Donald Trump, I think, has an intent on trying to interfere in the 26 and 28 elections. And I think it could come in primary elections. It could come in a state like mine, where we may have a statewide referendum on redistricting. And I've got a lot of things on my plate to try to do to make sure that we raise the alarm and make sure that we get pushback. Luckily, John Thune said Trump was not accurate or appropriate about federalization, but this is a guy with no guardrails.
That would be a violation of the U.S. Constitution as well. I know there are a lot of voices in your Democratic Party right now that are really concerned that the federal government could actually try to intrude in this year's midterm elections. Are you worried about that? Yes,
I am, Wolf. I mean, a year ago I wasn't, even 6 months ago, I was getting more concerned, but now I am. And you know, again, I keep asking, when are my Republican friends going to find a backbone and a spine to actually follow the law or honor the Constitution? We saw a little bit of that a week ago when folks acknowledged that ICE has run amok at this point, and we have to put some guardrails. We'll see if that moves into anything. But I think what I've got to do is continue to stay on top of those agencies, particularly on the intelligence community, whose job the intelligence agencies are look at foreign influence, not at American domestic interference. That is mostly due to the FBI, and we have seen Kash Patel basically decimate the leadership of the FBI to the point that that raid that was made last week in Fulton County in Georgia on the ballots, the FBI agent in charge of that office got fired because I don't believe he felt this was legal. And then to have a few days later, the Director of National Intelligence, who showed up at that domestic criminal investigation where she had no right to be there, suddenly gets the President of the United States on the phone with the frontline FBI agents who are working on that case. I know Trump doesn't know the law, but wasn't there anybody in the White House counsel that said, Mr. President, you shouldn't be talking to FBI agents on the front line of what is supposedly a domestic criminal investigation? But this is a guy without rails. This is a guy that's being enhanced by a rogue DNI who's way over her skis in terms of knowledge or competency. And I think we all got to really raise our game to protect basic democracy in this country.
And I want to follow up on this important issue because last week the FBI, as you correctly point out, raided an elections office in Georgia, seizing truckloads, not just boxes, but truckloads of ballots from the 2020 presidential election. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution obtained new body camera footage from local police officers on the scene during that raid, showing just how chaotic the search was. And I want you and our viewers to watch this.
What's happening now is that their warrant is wrong. It had the wrong, it's not in elections possession, it's in clerk's possession, so it had the wrong department.
The warrant will be amended slightly but for all intents and purposes, what they had is what it's going to look like. We wanted to let her facilitate us moving through the building to unlock the gates so that we don't have to breach it.
Republicans and the White House insist there's nothing wrong or illegal about conducting an investigation into results of the 2020 election. What's your response to that?
I'm not sure on national TV I can say, other than the fact baloney would be an understatement. The 2020 elections, and particularly in Georgia, have been litigated, recounted, tabulated, scrutinized. There has been no evidence, and now we're 6+ years later, and there's this obsession, and it is so chaotic that my understanding they didn't even bring the right warrant. So this is an FBI that I fear is being overtly used for political purposes by a president who's obsessed about his loss, who may use that loss in 2020 as a rationale to try to take away America's right to have a free and fair election in 2026. That is as dramatic and as important a threat as anything that's going on the international front around the world.
And before I let you go, Senator, I want you to talk a little bit about the increasing tensions between the U.S. and Iran right now. The U.S. military yesterday said it shot down an Iranian drone headed toward the U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln. It's a battle group in the Arabian Sea right now, not too far away from Iran. How close is the United States right now? Put your hat on as the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee. How close is the U.S. right now to war with Iran?
Well, Wolf, there's going to be negotiations this week between America and Iran about trying to lower the tensions. And believe me, if there was any way we could get rid of the Iranian regime, that would be better for the Iranian people and it would be better for the world. But the chaotic approach of Donald Trump, let's play this out. 2 weeks ago, when the Iranian people were on the street, mass protests, and Donald Trump said, don't worry, we got your back, we're going to intervene. He hadn't notified Congress, but one of the reasons why he couldn't intervene is that the aircraft carrier that was usually there was off the coast of Venezuela trying to blockade Venezuelan oil. And any action against Iran a couple of weeks ago when the protests were out on the street, when the time might have been right, a normal president would have been using that time to rally support from the Europeans to put pressure on as well. But he couldn't rally support from the Europeans because he was off on another tangent on NATO and potentially breaking up NATO with his threats against Greenland. All of these issues are interrelated. This chaotic approach makes America less safe. It makes our ability to put real pressure on the awful Iranian regime cut back, and I really fear that he could now stumble into a conflict without a real plan.
Yeah, let's not forget that Iranian regime killed thousands of Iranians, almost all of them Muslims. It was a brutal, brutal situation, the protesters on the streets of Tehran and other cities in Iran. Senator Mark Warner, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.